which it says that Amar Rabbi Elazar HaGadol. Rabbi Elazar HaGadol says that the Gemara says, or the Medrash says, that the schar, the mitzvah of Tefillin, that it says that all the nations of the world will see the name of Hashem called upon you, and they will fear you. So Rabbi Elazar HaGadol says, Elu Tefillin Shabarosh. This refers to the Tefillin. So by us strengthening the mitzvah ourselves, as well as making sure that another Yid puts on Tefillin, that enables us to be able to do our part in waging this war against the enemy and bringing the world to a much better place than it's up until now. And it's amazing to see, as it's always been, when you tell somebody all you need to do is put on Tefillin for 1 minute, and you could be helping a soldier in Eretz Yisrael. The willingness for people to participate is amazing, so much more so than ever before. Under normal circumstances, we know it's done all the time, but often you come across difficulties. There's much less of that today. I was actually doing it today, and I found difficulties. There were a bunch of people that I actually stopped, and they weren't Jewish, and they said, sorry, I can't be of help. But amongst the Jews, the majority of them had no problem with it and were happy to be able to do it. So it's our way, and it's the mitzvah of Tefillin. It's any other mitzvah. The more we do, the more we strengthen ourselves and we strengthen Klal Yisrael. So let's continue, and that is we started learning 2 days ago about the Kavanas HaMitzvos. And we learned that when a person puts on Tefillin and fulfills the mitzvah of Tefillin in the best possible way, then he has the ability, it strengthens his schusim, and we are assured that our schusim will be able to overpower any negativity that anybody has. And who doesn't have something that he may have done wrong? But in spite of that, by us doing this particular mitzvah, that gives us a special koyach. Because as it says, Huksha kol ha-Torah kulo l'Tefillin. The mitzvah of Tefillin is a mitzvah that the entire Torah is compared to. And as it says, L'man tia teirus Hashem b'ficha, that the whole idea of Tefillin is so that we have the words of Hashem, the Torah of Hashem b'ficha. In addition to that, it also says that if you're careful with mitzvah Tefillin, you have a special bracha of arichas yamim. So it's obviously one of those things that we have to do the best we can, particularly in times like today. If somebody puts on Tefillin and doesn't assure himself that his Tefillin are kosher, you can put on Tefillin for many years and finally give it a check and realize there's a problem with them. So Misha Meniach Tefillin Psulis Lezel Bavacha Inu Mekayim as a mitzvah, not only is he not fulfilling the mitzvah if you don't put on kosher Tefillin, Ella after Varach Barachas Levatala. You're even making a bracha levatala. You're making a bracha for no reason. So therefore, that's why it's important all times, especially today, when, like with every other issue, there's always those that do things inappropriately. So too, when it comes to tefillin, you have to make sure that you buy it from a Yerei Shamayim. You buy tefillin, you don't just want to buy it from anybody. You can buy tefillin or mezuzahs and realize that the tefillin or the mezuzahs were printed tefillin or mezuzahs instead of written properly. Today, they can be done so well that it's hard for the average person to be able to tell the difference. A sefer can certainly tell the difference. But not only that, especially when we talk about printed or not printed, where we might think, that we can certainly tell. But besides that, there are so many other issues in terms of the kashrus of the tefillin that there may be a mistake. There may be some issue where there's a negiah, where one letter is touching another letter, where a letter is cracked. There are a lot of issues, and there's basic things people have put on film, and I've heard this happen more than once. They've been putting on film for many years, and all of a sudden, after checking it so many times, somebody realized that their film in the parsha, there's a word missing. So there's always that possibility. That's why it's also a good idea, and I've done it myself, not to always give your film to the same sefer to check, because sometimes what one sefer picks up, the other one doesn't. So it's good to, if you have an opportunity, to give it to another sefer to check as well. So, or switch off. So this way, if there might be something that one sefer doesn't check, doesn't catch, the other sefer might be able to catch it. Well, again, the computer can catch certain things. The computer is, most importantly, what the computer can catch is if there's something missing. But again, if there's a crack in a letter, that's not necessarily something the computer is going to catch. So computer is a checking that's done in addition to a sefer checking it to make sure that the letters out there are written properly. For that, you need a sefer. Well, that's a different thing, and that's why you need a sefer that's a Yerei Shamayim, God-fearing. So certain thing, bottom line is, when you buy film, you have to buy it from a Yerei Shamayim, from somebody that's selling you a pair of film that is a God-fearing person that knows if he's bought it, he makes sure he knows who he bought it from. If he's written it, he makes sure it's been written properly. And even after that's all said and done, usually when a sefer sells a pair of film, he makes sure before he sells it to you, if he's written those film, to give it to somebody else to check, so that they are sure that they haven't made a mistake. So too, when you talk about the Ritzuas, the straps of the tomb, they too need to be bought from somebody that's trustworthy. That they know for sure that these Ritzuas, the leather, was made for the sake of the mitzvah of tefillin. You didn't just take a piece of leather, any piece of leather, and cut it up and use it as ritzuas. It has to be from the beginning to the end, be done l'shem mitzvah. Unfortunately, people buy tefillin and mezuzahs from just anybody. And the reason is a very simple one, because from just anybody, you might get it cheaper than the price that you're paying now. Tefillin today, a good pair of tefillin can cost you about $2,000 or close to that. So if you're going to find a pair of tefillin that's going to cost you considerably less, it's certainly something you should be looking into and seeing why it's so much cheaper. And so sometimes there are tefillin that are written and they're kosher, but they're not kosher lechatchila. They have issues, and they weren't written by such a professional sefer. Maybe it's his first time around, second time around, 10th time around, as opposed to a sefer that's been written right in tefillin who knows how many times. So obviously, it's like with anything else. If you get it from somebody that's a professional at it, you're going to pay more money for it. But that's even if he means well. If he's a beginner, he's not going to do it that well. How much more so when you're not even talking about a beginner. You're talking about somebody who, to begin with, wants to fool you. And he's looking to get it in the cheapest possible way. And the way to get that is by not using the proper kind of leather for the ritzuas and the proper kind of leather for the tefillin itself. Again, so some people just assume I bought it in Israel, must be great, must be kosher. But again, like you point out, even if it was written properly, but it wasn't written by a professional, so you're not going to get the best item that you want, that you need. So sometimes you might get an item like that that's written properly, but not professionally, so you might pay less for that. but at the same time, you realize you didn't get the best kind of suit. Are you going to buy? Do you want to buy the best kind of suit, or do you want to buy a second-rate suit? So for a suit, you might not care, but for mezuzahs, you want to have the best. If you're going to make a bracha over it and fulfill the mitzvah, and there's specifications as to how you can fulfill the mitzvah in the best possible way, go for it. You do it once a day, and you do it your entire life. So get a pair of tefillin that are done properly. Every God-fearing person that you're going to buy a pair of tefillin from, or one that wants to buy a pair of tefillin, should think about if about when you buy a suit or when you buy dishes or whatever you buy, you make sure to get the best. You want to have one that's worth its while. Certainly when we buy something that Hashem tells us to get, we shouldn't be cheap on the money. It costs more money, yes, but you're getting a better item. And if you were to get a better suit, you pay a little bit more money. Certainly so when you're getting a mezuzah and it's better, so you pay a little bit more, but you have a good item. You want to be sure to buy one that is certainly kosher, even though they may cost more. You also want to be careful once you've bought the tefillin, be careful that the tefillin remain kosher properly. Part of that being sometimes a tefillin that you're wearing can get banged, and if they get banged, sometimes the ink comes off. It's no longer black. It can be white spots or whatever. And these, again, it might be kosher, but it still may not be kosher the way it should be. So you have to be on top of it and make sure to check it. And many things can be fixed, but you want to be sure that you have your tefillin in the best possible way. What we need to have, the intention we need to have when we put on tefillin is that Hashem commanded us to write the four parshas, the parts of the portions of the Torah, and in tefillin that are in the tefillin. And what is the contents of these four parshas? It talks about the unity of Hashem, and it talks about Yitzias Mitzrayim as being taken out of Mitzrayim. And the purpose is so that we remember continuously the miracles that Hashem performed for us. That represents the concept that Hashem is one, meaning that He can do anything He wants. There's nothing that stands in the way of anything that He wants to have done. And Hashem has the ability. He can do what He wants. We have issues today with the hostages, and we're concerned that we don't know what's going to be and how can we possibly save them. Hashem can figure it out. Miracles can occur, and as has been said many times, we don't just count on miracles. We don't just trust in miracles, but we count on miracles. The lives of Bnei Yisrael all throughout the ages that we lived through. The history of Bnei Yisrael has been always been one that we lived because we continue to count on miracles. If we didn't count on miracles, we wouldn't be here today. We wouldn't be living where we are today, where we know the enemies are surrounding us and we have guards at the door, but yet we know we're counting on the miracles that Hashem is going to protect us. It depends. You don't go out of your way to put yourself in a sakana, but at the same time, Hashem put us in a world where we need to rely on Hashem's miracles. We're talking about you're going to go out of your way to do something that Hashem doesn't want you to do. So but that comes into the picture. Don't go scuba diving when you don't know what you're doing, and Hashem is going to protect me. Hashem could protect you nevertheless, but it does say that when we need to rely on Hashem's miracles, it takes away from our schusim. If things aren't as Hashem can do miracles for us and does miracles for us all the time, but at the same time, when there's not a need for it, we don't look for Hashem to need to do extra miracles for us, because al tismech al hanes, don't rely on a miracle. Because when you rely on a miracle, it's like you ask somebody, a good friend of you, to do something for you. There's only so many times he'll go out of his way to do it for you, right? Obviously, it's not the same with Hashem, but at the same time, it does say that when a person has chusim, when he has mitzvahs, he's especially protected. But don't use up your mitzvahs. Even Avraham Avinu said at some point that that it's because perhaps I had so much kindness from Hashem, maybe I'm not worthy of it anymore. So again, we count on miracles from Hashem just by the very fact that we live in a world that we're protected by so many, that we're surrounded by so many enemies or by so many animals. And in spite of that, Hashem continues to protect us. And why Hashem does, whenever there's difficulties and challenges, we don't know. We don't have the answers to that. But at the same time, we continue to live and continue to do what we need to, counting continuously on the Eibishter's miracles. So the idea of tefillin really represents that. We put that on, and in it, there are the parshas of Hashem that talk about the unity of Hashem, the greatness of Hashem, the fact that He performs miracles. And Hashem commands us to put on the tefillin on our arm, opposite our hearts, and on our head, opposite the brain, so that we dedicate our neshama, which is in the head, the brain, and also our desires that we have in our hearts, that we dedicate them to the avodas Hashem, to the service of Hashem. Because by putting on tefillin, we're always going to remember Hashem, and we will minimize in doing pleasures just for the sake of pleasures. We'll do it for the sake of Hashem. Not to say that we can't enjoy a mitzvah. We could enjoy a mitzvah. It comes Shabbos and Yontiv. We should enjoy a Shabbos and a Yontiv, a Shabbos meal, and so on. But it's because of the mitzvah that Hashem gave us. It's for the sake of the mitzvah. Correct? Under any circumstances. Under any circumstances, our job is Ivdu es Hashem b'simcha. We always have to serve Hashem with joy. That's our job. But Alter Rebbe says in Tanya that if a person during the day at any time becomes depressed, he should know clearly that's coming from the Yetzer Hara. If a person, when he's saying Shema Yisrael at night, and it's Shema Yisrael at night, when a person says the Shema in the evening before he's about to retire for the night, he thinks about how it's like a miniature Yom Kippur to an extent. That at the end of the day, at the end of the year, you take an account of how the year went, or you take an account of how the day went, and you think about what I did that I need correction, and tomorrow I'm going to be a different person. So if you do that in Kriyas Shema Shalamita before you're about to go to sleep, and you make decisions that tomorrow you're going to change, that's great. That could be coming from the Yetzer Tov. But if during the day that happens, all that does is it puts you on hold. It doesn't allow for you to continue to move along and doing the right things. You ever see somebody that's depressed that can properly be doing a mitzvah? Person is depressed, he's frozen, can't do anything. So in order to, you see even the soldiers today going out to war, and we know this goes back to Napoleon's march, well known. When Napoleon with his soldiers, when they would go out to war, they would go out to war with a march. Because in order to be able to be successful over your enemy, the only way to do that is if you're joyful, if you're happy. And similarly, so what we say here, that you have to be able to be totally devoted and dedicated to Hashem, that Hashem certainly will do what He needs for us, will certainly perform miracles for us. Hashem at the same time expects of us to continue to do what we need to do, and that is to do ourselves more mitzvahs, to get friends to do another mitzvah, to include another person in teaching them about more mitzvahs, particularly when it comes to tefillin, to make sure that might say to ourselves, yeah, we put on tefillin every day, no problem. When was the last time you checked your tefillin to be sure they're kosher? When was the last time you stopped to think before you put on tefillin what the kavanah, what the intent is that we should be having when we put on tefillin? So everything can be done in a better and better and better way. So particularly during times like today, that's what we have to try to improve upon in assisting ourselves personally. And when we do something ourselves personally, we are, each and every one of us is not just a personal individual. We are part of Klal Yisrael. We are one with the soldier that's going at war. And when we do a mitzvah, he's doing a mitzvah. We assist him and give him the koyach from Hashem because of the mitzvah that we did, that he's part of that mitzvah as well. And that way Hashem will certainly protect them and do what they need. So Mashiach should be here already. We shouldn't have any wars anymore.